a house steeped in history, where every shadow hides a story and every whisper could be a warning. When Clara steps into her grandmother's old home, she's greeted by more than just memories. An ancient rocking chair, a mysterious diary, and a voice that calls to her from the past. They all pull her deeper into a chilling mystery. What dark secrets are buried within these walls? Will Clara uncover the truth, or will she fall victim to the same fate as those who came before her? Stay with us to unravel the haunting legacy of this eerie house. You won't want to miss a moment of this gripping tale.
Behind the doors.
Clara parked her car in front of her grandmother's old house, a majestic wooden building that proudly and decadently bore the marks of time. The windows, framed by heavy, faded curtains, seemed to stare at her as if the house itself was sizing her up. The Salem sky was tinged with a deep orange, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the trees surrounding the property, creating an almost magical scene, yet laden with a sense of melancholy. She took a deep breath, inhaling the characteristic smell of aged wood mixed with the fresh evening air. The memory of her grandmother, with her stories and warm smiles, enveloped her, but was soon replaced by an inexplicable unease. Clara took the old key she had found in one of her grandmother's belongings and, with a hesitant motion, unlocked the front door. As she crossed the threshold, Clara was greeted by a familiar yet slightly strange scent, as if time had stopped in that place. The interior of the house was dark and silent, except for the faint creaking of the floorboards under her feet. The walls were adorned with family portraits, their fixed, serious gazes following Clara wherever she went. A sense of discomfort washed over her as she realized the house was full of untold stories. Clara walked into the living room, where a large velvet sofa and an old coffee table occupied the space. However, what really caught her attention was an empty rocking chair, positioned in a corner where the sunlight was beginning to fade. The chair seemed to be moving, gently rocking despite the absence of any wind. Clara frowned, confused. It's just my imagination, she thought, but the feeling that something was there, unseen, was palpable. Determined to explore further, Clara approached the chair. "What do you want from me?" she murmured, almost not wanting to hear the answer. The ensuing silence was deafening, but a light breeze passed by her, like a whisper. Clara shivered, her hands trembling slightly. She stepped back a little, trying to shake the feeling that the chair was watching her. As the sun set, the room began to plunge into shadows, and Clara decided to find something to distract her. The atmosphere carried an emotional weight she couldn't ignore. She grabbed a photo album from the nearest shelf and began flipping through it. The images of her childhood, familiar smiles and Christmas gatherings seemed so distant, yet so close at the same time. However, whenever her gaze drifted to the chair, a chill ran down her spine. Suddenly, a whisper cut through the silence. "Clara." The voice was soft, almost familiar. Clara turned quickly, but the room was empty. Her heart raced in her chest. "Is someone here?" she asked, her voice trembling. The echo of her question died in the darkness, and the only response she received was the continuous rocking of the chair. She took a hesitant step toward the chair, curiosity overcoming fear. "Who's there?" Clara felt a mix of fear and determination. "If you have something to tell me, I'm listening." But again, silence fell over the room, and the only thing she could hear was the sound of her own breathing. For a moment she hesitated, a part of her wanting to run away. But the desire to uncover the truth about her heritage and her grandmother's legacy was stronger. "I'm not running away," she declared aloud, as if to encourage herself. "I'm going to understand what's happening here." And determined, she placed a hand on the chair, feeling the cold wood under her fingers. The sensation that something was about to happen enveloped her, and a shiver ran down her spine. As evening turned to night, Clara was about to discover that the house held secrets that would challenge her understanding of the past and connect her to something much deeper than she could ever imagine. Clara couldn't get the image of the empty rocking chair out of her mind. Something about that old piece intrigued her deeply, as if it held secrets that were begging to be revealed. The next day, after a restless night, Clara decided she needed to know more about the history of the house and her grandmother. As she explored the rooms, her fingers brushed over the dust-covered furniture, and she wondered about the lives these objects had witnessed. It was then that, while flipping through an old photo album on the shelf, Clara came across a picture of an imposing woman with dark hair and a penetrating gaze. On the back of the photo, written in fine, elegant handwriting, was the name Eliza, 1892. A chill ran down her spine. This woman was the same one who appeared in her dreams, a figure who seemed to move between the past and the present. Eliza, who were you? Clara murmured, feeling the presence of the chair as if it were listening to her words. Meanwhile, Lucas, her childhood friend, decided it was time to visit her. He had always been an unwavering support, and curiosity drove him to venture into the old house. When he arrived, Clara was in one of the rooms, examining the walls covered in faded wallpaper. "Hi, Clara," Lucas said as he entered the room. "How are you adjusting to the new house?" "I don't know, Lucas. There's something strange here." She hesitated, looking toward the living room where the rocking chair was. "I feel like there's someone or something watching me." Lucas followed her gaze and frowned. "You're talking about the chair? I noticed it too. It feels alive." "Exactly," Clara exclaimed, excited to have someone who shared her unease. "I found a photo of a woman named Eliza. I think she lived here." "Eliza?" Lucas repeated, thinking. "I've heard of her. They say she had a tragic life. You should investigate more." Clara nodded, determined. "Let's search for more information. Maybe there's something in the town's archives or even in the local library." That same night, as Clara was preparing for bed, she was awakened by a soft whisper that floated through the air like a light breeze. "Clara." She sat up in bed, her heart racing. The sound seemed to come from the living room. Hesitantly, she got up and walked toward the whisper that was calling her. Moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating the rocking chair, which was still, but Clara could swear she saw it move slightly. "Who's there?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. Nothing responded except the heavy silence that enveloped the house. She approached the chair, unease growing inside her. The air seemed charged with a strange electricity. Clara reached out, hesitant, and touched the arm of the chair. At that moment, a wave of emotion hit her, as if she were connected to an old memory, a pain that wasn't hers, but still enveloped her. "You need to listen to me, Clara," whispered a voice, clearer now. It was the female voice she had heard in her dreams. "The past cannot remain buried." Clara recoiled, feeling a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Eliza, is that you?" The chair rocked slowly as if nodding. Clara realized she needed to understand what was happening there. The connection to Eliza seemed stronger than ever, and with Lucas by her side, she was determined to unravel the mysteries surrounding the house and its former inhabitant. The next morning, Clara and Lucas headed to the local library, where the smell of old books filled the air. Clara began flipping through records and old newspapers, while Lucas searched for books on Salem's history and legends. "Look at this," Lucas called, holding up a newspaper clipping. "This article talks about a series of strange events that happened in the house over 100 years ago. It says that the last resident, Eliza, disappeared without a trace." Clara approached, her heart racing. "What else does it say?" "It says that many believed she was trapped by something within the house, and there's a mention of a chair." Lucas looked at her, his eyes wide. "Clara, this can't be a coincidence." "We need to find out more, Lucas," Clara replied, determined. "Whatever happened to Eliza, I feel like it's connected to me." And so, with the mystery growing around them, Clara was about to dive into a past that would change her life forever. Clara and Lucas sat on the cold floor of the living room, surrounded by old books and dusty objects. Moonlight filtered through the curtains, casting shadows that danced on the walls. The atmosphere was tense, and the room seemed to pulse with the anticipation of what was to come. Clara held the flashlight firmly, while Lucas carefully examined the place, searching for any clue that might shed light on the house's mysteries. "Do you really think we can find something useful here?" Lucas asked, his voice low and cautious. I don't know, but I feel like we're close to discovering something, Clara replied, looking at the rocking chair, which seemed to be watching them with an empty gaze. She still couldn't shake the feeling that there was something or someone there, lurking, waiting to be revealed. It was then that Clara remembered the old trunk she had seen during her initial exploration. "Wait a moment," Clara said, standing up quickly. "I think I saw a locked trunk in the corner of the room. It might contain something related to Eliza." "Let's check it out," Lucas responded, excited. He followed her to the corner of the room, where a dark wooden trunk was leaning against the wall. The flashlight's beam illuminated the details of the object, revealing intricate carvings that seemed to tell stories from a distant past. Clara knelt and examined the rusty lock. "It looks like it's locked. We need a key." Lucas looked around, trying to find something that could help them. "Maybe there's a key hidden somewhere around here. Let's search." The two began rummaging through the room, moving objects and opening drawers. Clara, on a sudden impulse, decided to check under the rocking chair. As she knelt down, she felt a sudden chill, almost as if the chair itself was warning her about something. And then she saw it, a small iron key, dirty and forgotten, lying on the floor. "Lucas, look at this," Clara exclaimed, holding up the key as if it were a treasure. "You found it," Lucas smiled, and they quickly moved to the trunk. Clara inserted the key into the lock, and with a click, the trunk opened. Inside, they found a dusty diary, its pages yellowed and worn by time. Clara pulled the diary out, her eyes shining with anticipation. "It's Eliza's diary." She carefully flipped through the pages, admiring the elaborate handwriting. "Read something," Lucas said, his curiosity evident. Clara began reading aloud, and soon Eliza's words filled the room as if the young woman herself were there, sharing her secrets. "Today, I completed the pact. The chair is my protection, but I don't know at what cost. What will happen if I fail?" With each sentence, the tension grew. "What was Eliza trying to protect?" Lucas murmured, his expression now serious. "It seems there was more to this pact than we imagined," Clara replied, her voice trembling. "She mentions sacrifices. What does that mean?" "We should keep reading," Lucas insisted, and Clara agreed, her hands trembling slightly as she turned the pages. As they continued reading, Clara came across a passage that made her pause. "She talks about visions, of a presence watching her," Clara said, her eyes widening, "and of a danger that's approaching." "This isn't good," Lucas said, concerned. "We need to find out more about these visions. This could be a warning." "Yes, and it seems the chair has something to do with all of this," Clara added, looking again at the object that dominated the room. The presence she had felt before now seemed stronger, as if the chair was breathing, pulsating with its own energy. As Clara and Lucas continued reading, the atmosphere around them seemed to change. The air grew heavier, and a sense of unease hung over them. Clara could barely focus on the words, as she felt like she was being watched. The familiar whisper that had called her the night before echoed in her mind, and she began to see flashes of a female figure, a face that was strangely familiar. "Clara?" Lucas called, noticing her distant expression. "Are you okay?" I don't know," Clara replied, her voice barely audible. "I feel like Eliza is here, trying to warn us about something." Lucas's gaze intensified. "We need to understand this before it's too late. Let's explore more about what Eliza was really trying to protect and how it connects to the chair." With a nod, Clara closed the diary, feeling that the hardest part was yet to come. What else did the past hold for them? And what would be the true cost of uncovering the truth? Clara sat on the edge of the bed, the morning light filtering through the worn curtains, as her mind spun around the revelations in Eliza's diary. What she had discovered the night before was more than just a family story. It was a curse that seemed to intertwine with her own fate. Eliza's words echoed in her mind like a persistent whisper, inviting her to seek more answers. Determined to understand the connection between the empty chair and the tragedy that haunted her family, Clara got up and walked to the living room. The rocking chair, with its antique appearance, seemed even more unsettling in the daylight. She hesitated for a moment, remembering Lucas's warnings, who had insisted she stay away from it. Lucas's worried look still resonated in her mind. "Clara, this isn't safe. You don't know what might happen." "But I need to know," Clara murmured to herself, the determination growing within her. "If there's any chance to understand what happened, I can't just ignore it." With a deep breath, Clara approached the chair, her heart racing with each step. The air around her seemed thicker, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. When her hands touched the arm of the chair, a wave of cold enveloped her, and visions began to swirl in her mind. She saw a room similar to this one, but decorated differently, with fresh flowers and laughter echoing through the space. In a corner, a young woman with dark hair and bright eyes sat, dressed in a wedding gown. It was Eliza, in a moment of pure happiness. But as Clara watched, the scene began to change. Eliza's image distorted, and the joyful atmosphere turned into tension. Clara saw a man enter, his face grim and his eyes cold. He held a letter, and Eliza's expression changed to one of despair. The man confronted her, and the tension between them was palpable. Clara felt her heart tighten as she heard the words being exchanged. "You can't do this, Eliza. You know what this means," the man said, his voice full of anger. "I can't live like this, in someone else's shadow. I've chosen my fate," Eliza responded, determination in her voice. But soon, the scene became more chaotic. Clara saw flashes of screams, tears, and finally, a fall, a scream echoing through the house. The man, now with a look of betrayal, walked away, leaving Eliza alone in pain and despair. "No!" Clara cried out involuntarily, feeling suffocated by the sadness that permeated the vision. The images began to fade, and in an instant, she found herself back in the room, the chair still gently rocking as if it had a life of its own. Clara stepped back, her heart pounding and her breath heavy. Lucas appeared at the door, his expression worried. "Clara, what happened? You're pale." I saw Eliza," Clara replied, her voice trembling. She was happy, but something went wrong. There was a man, and he betrayed her. Lucas frowned, approaching her. "This is serious. We need to find out who this man was and what exactly happened. This chair is at the center of all this." "I know, but I feel like I need to go deeper. There's something more here, something that connects me to this story," Clara confessed, the determination returning to her eyes. "I can't just walk away." "Clara, you don't understand. The chair is connected to a curse that could cost more than you imagine." "We could end up putting ourselves in danger," Lucas insisted, his tone more serious than before. "I can't ignore this, Lucas. If there's a way to free Eliza and understand what happened, I have to try," Clara stated, her voice full of conviction. Lucas hesitated, but her determination was palpable. "Then let's find out more. But we need to be careful. We don't know what the chair might do." Clara nodded, feeling the adrenaline coursing through her body. Together, they prepared to unravel the mysteries surrounding the chair and Eliza's life, aware that the truth they sought might be more terrifying than either of them could imagine. The atmosphere in the house seemed to vibrate with expectation, as if the past itself was waiting to be revealed. Clara sat in the worn armchair, her eyes fixed on the rocking chair, which seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The lamplight cast dancing shadows on the walls, and the atmosphere in the room was heavy, almost oppressive. Since discovering Eliza's diary, the presence of the chair had become more intense, as if an invisible force was pulling her closer to an abyss she didn't fully understand yet. "We need to find out how to break this pact," Lucas said, breaking the silence that hung between them. He was standing, watching the chair with a worried expression. If Eliza made a deal, there must be a way to undo it. Clara nodded, feeling a shiver run down her spine. But what could it be? The diary mentions a sacrifice, but it doesn't say what it is. And what if it's something I can't give? Her voice trembled, reflecting the uncertainty that overwhelmed her. Lucas approached, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. Let's do more research. Maybe we can find someone who knows your family's history, someone who knows more about Eliza and what happened here. Yes, but what if there's no way out? Clara looked at the chair, which now seemed to be watching them, the wood creaking softly with a non-existent movement. What if I have to pay a high price? Lucas's expression hardened. We can't let fear control us. We need to face this together. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. The chair's whispers called to her, and in her mind, she could swear Eliza's name echoed repeatedly like a mantra, begging for help. Her heart racing, she decided to get up and approach the chair, her legs trembling with each step. As she drew near, the atmosphere changed. The cold emanating from the chair enveloped Clara like a heavy cloak. She reached out hesitantly towards the empty seat. As soon as her fingers touched the wood, a wave of images flooded her mind. She saw Eliza, no longer as a figure from the past, but as a living shadow with desperate eyes. You need to understand, the shadow whispered, her voice echoing like a lament. The sacrifice isn't what you think. It's deeper, more personal. My soul is trapped here, and only you can set me free. Clara recoiled, her heart pounding wildly. What do you mean by that? I can't do this. I can't sacrifice my own life. Eliza's shadow seemed to writhe, a mixture of pain and longing. It's not your life, Clara. It's your connection. You're part of me, and I'm part of you. What we did, the pacts we made, need to be undone. But for that, you must choose. You must choose to free yourself. Free myself, Clara repeated, confusion mixing with terror. I don't understand. What are you asking me to do? The environment around them began to darken as the tension mounted. The chair creaked as if resisting something deep and unchangeable. You need to confront what's hidden, what was buried in the past, the truth you don't want to see. Lucas appeared at the door, his expression worried. Clara, what's going on? She turned quickly, but Eliza's shadow continued to call her, becoming more insistent. You must choose, Clara. What will you sacrifice? Clara looked at Lucas, who was becoming increasingly alarmed. I don't know what to do, Lucas. Her voice was a whisper filled with despair. You're not alone, he replied, moving toward her. We're in this together. No matter what you have to face, I'll be by your side. But Clara knew the choice was hers. The chair, now emanating an almost palpable energy, made her thoughts swirl. What was she willing to sacrifice to break this cycle? The question echoed in her mind as Eliza's shadow waited, expectant, ready to reveal the truth that could change everything. I need to know the truth, Clara said, her voice firm despite the fear. I need to understand what really happened. Thus, Clara and Eliza's fates were about to intertwine in a way she could never have imagined. Clara was paralyzed in front of the chair where Eliza's shadow materialized, her nebulous and ethereal form twisting like smoke in a fire. The air around her seemed to vibrate with the tension of the moment, as an almost palpable silence enveloped the room. Clara's heart beat erratically, and she felt a chill down her spine, as if the atmosphere was charged with supernatural energy. Clara? Eliza's voice sounded like a whisper but carried the force of a scream. You need to listen. I'm trapped here, and the only way to free me is through you. I don't understand, Clara exclaimed, her gaze fixed on the entity. What do you want from me? Eliza hesitated, the nebulous form trembling before stabilizing. The sacrifice is you. You need to let go of the house and the inheritance. Only then can I finally rest. Clara felt tears streaming down her face as the reality of what was being asked of her hit. But what about everything I've built? This house is part of me, part of my history. It's an illusion, Clara. What's here isn't love, but pain. This house carries the weight of our tragedies. I am your inheritance, and you are my reincarnation. We are bound by a cycle of suffering. To break it, you must set me free. The revelation struck her like a blow. Clara wasn't just an heir. She was Eliza herself, doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. A wave of understanding washed over her, and she felt that every step she had taken in the house had led her to this moment. The chair, the pact, the whispers. Everything was part of a vicious cycle that needed to be ended. "But how can I do this?" Clara asked, her voice trembling, full of despair. "How can I let go of everything?" "Destroy the chair," Eliza replied, her voice now clearer, but still tinged with sadness. "It's the only way. Break what binds us, and I can finally break free from this place. The pain doesn't need to be yours anymore." Clara looked at the chair, now darker than ever. The idea of destroying it was terrifying, but the possibility of freeing herself, of freeing Eliza, filled her with growing determination. "I will do it," Clara declared, her voice firming. "I can't live with this weight any longer. I can't carry this pain anymore." "You are so strong, Clara," Eliza whispered, and her form seemed to glow with a soft light as if hope was seeping into the darkness. "Go, and remember, true love is the one that sets you free." With one last look at the entity that was part of her, Clara stepped away from the chair and ran to the kitchen. Her heart raced as she grabbed a hammer from the toolbox her grandmother had left behind. The image of the chair, which had once seemed so familiar and comforting, now became a symbol of oppression and pain. When Clara returned to the room, the chair seemed to pulse, as if it knew what was about to happen. She raised the hammer with both hands. The tension in the air was palpable. "I'm sorry, Eliza," she murmured, and with all her strength she struck. The sound of the impact echoed through the house, and the wood shattered into 1,000 pieces, as if time itself was breaking. The chair disintegrated, and in an instant, a strong wind swept through the room, taking Eliza's presence with it. Clara felt a wave of warmth envelop her, as if she was being embraced by a radiant light. When the dust settled, Clara found herself alone in the room, but now there was calm. The weight that had once oppressed her had vanished, and as she looked around, she realized the atmosphere in the house was changing. The shadows that once lingered now seemed to dissipate, and daylight began to stream through the windows, illuminating the dark corners. Clara fell to her knees, exhausted, but with a sense of freedom she had never experienced before. She had broken the cycle, not just for Eliza, but for herself. The legacy that had once imprisoned her was now an opportunity to start anew. "Thank you, Eliza," Clara whispered into the emptiness, feeling at peace. "Now we can both move on."